Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. So today I thought I would share my story on how my husband and I eloped and what our wedding story looked like. I know that before we decided to elope, we were both kind of looking at other people who had done it before and kind of seeing if it was something that we really wanted to do. So I thought I would just share my experience, why I decided to, and just a few things to consider before you decide to elope. So in order to understand our whole situation, it's important to understand the timeline that everything happened, and also just to understand who my husband and I are and what mattered to us. So before my husband and I were ever engaged or ever planning a wedding, when we were dating, we always talked about possibly eloping. We would talk about what it would look like, just how exciting it seemed and how stress-free it seems just to go and get married on our own and not have to worry about all the technicalities and all the little things that go into having a wedding. So we would talk about it a lot while dating, and there were even a few times where we were just like, let's just go elope. Like, why don't we just go elope tomorrow or next week? You know, what's keeping us from doing that kind of thing? And so we would do that a lot when we were dating. So the idea of eloping to us was never this far off concept that we were like, oof, I don't think we'd ever do that. It was always kind of like in the back of our heads, like that would be so cool if we did that. So fast forward July of 2020, we got engaged, and that was one of the best days ever. It was so sweet. He took me to a little mountain, it was like a farm kind of, but it had a beautiful mountain view and the sun was setting right behind the mountains. And we had like a little picnic there, and he proposed, and it was just perfect. And so on that day, we were both, when you get engaged, you're just so excited. And obviously both of us were sharing that excitement. We were excited for our future, excited to get married, you know, excited to just be together. I think for us, we almost like got caught up in that excitement when we were engaged. There's nothing wrong with that, enjoying that excitement, enjoying that time, and we were totally enjoying it, just being in love and being young and engaged. And then so I think in that we got kind of caught up in the whole excitement and everyone being like, what are you gonna do for the wedding? What are you gonna do for the wedding? You know, the wedding was just kind of on our brains and almost like an expectation. So we definitely did get caught up in that excitement. And we started talking about having a wedding and what that would look like. And then kind of once we were engaged, we were kind of like, yeah, well, let's just have a wedding, you know. Everyone's talking to us about it, so let's do it. And we also thought it'd be a good idea to have a wedding just because we're both from two separate states. And we thought it would be a good time for our families to come together and just meet everyone and be joined together through our marriage. After we got engaged, we were talking about when to set the date. We didn't really know when to set a date because we both were not in a position to get married when we got engaged. Meaning we did not have full-time jobs or steady income at the time of our engagement. So going into setting a date, we knew we were gonna have to set it out far enough that we would have enough time to get on our feet and be able to take care of ourselves, basically. That was scary to us when we got engaged because, you know, we never wanted to have a long engagement. And even with the date we set, it wouldn't have been a long engagement. But with talking to my parents were engaged for 2 years. And they said that if they could go back, they wouldn't have done that just because things got harder within those 2 years to not, you know, be married, like act married when you're not married, you know? And so, because for us personally, you know, we didn't want to move in together. We didn't want to have all of those things until we were married so we could share those first together. We knew that with us getting engaged, there wasn't much sense in having a long engagement. And so we were initially thinking about having our wedding the following fall. We were thinking about doing the November wedding, but again, we were worried we were not going to be able to support ourselves financially. So we decided to set the date in April of 2021 and just kind of leave it at that. So within that time, we started planning the wedding. We got a wedding planner, we got the venue, we got the dress and everything, and that was all great. Our wedding planner is literally the sweetest. So she was helping us navigate everything. She set up a to-do list for us that we needed to do within each month, and we were on our way to planning a wedding. During that time also, Trevor and I got blessed with great full-time jobs. He's working a job that he loves. I got blessed with a really flexible full-time job since I'm still a full-time online student. And we were able to start bringing in income for ourselves so that we could build towards us being married and supporting ourselves. After a while of planning, which honestly, we started planning like the beginning of August because we gave a little bit of time to just enjoy being engaged. But we started planning at the beginning of August, and a few months into that, we started getting a little bit frustrated, I guess, just with everything. Wedding planning is no walk in the park. It can be very stressful. There's a lot of little intricacies that go into it that you just don't think about unless you're an event planner. So we were getting a little bit weary, not just with the wedding planning, but just with where we were at, you know, our hearts. We just felt like we were ready to just be married, and we felt like we were just ready to just go ahead and do it. And that's what our hearts felt. Plus, it was around the time we had originally wanted to get married. So it was kind of like, well, we could be getting married right now, but we have to wait. And so during that time, we kind of started talking about eloping again, which was a recurring conversation that we had throughout our relationship, you know, even back to when we were dating, we talked about eloping. And so we were kind of just getting to that point where we were like, you know what, like, we don't care. Like, we don't care about all these little things. We don't care about impressing people or, you know, having a grand celebration. You know, what mattered to us was us being together and committing ourselves to one another, and it being an intimate time that we shared together. And so that conversation started coming up over and over. And then we just got to the point where we're like, you know what? Let's just elope. Like, there's nothing keeping us from doing it. Why wouldn't we if that's what we really want? And, you know, we can always navigate plans. We can always navigate things that we've already planned out. And so we talked to both of our parents, and both of them were super supportive and loving, and just like, whatever you decide, we'll be there. We'll support you no matter what. We love you. We just want you to, you know, go about this the way that you truly want to go about it. And, you know, I was even having a conversation with my mom, and we were talking, and, you know, it came up just, a wedding is just one of the few moments in your life that you have the right to be selfish about, you know? And people make a wedding all about the bride, and it does end up being that way because weddings are most of the time planned by a bride, and, you know, the groom just wants to get married. And some grooms are really invested in their wedding, and they want it to be, they're just as excited about it as the bride is, and that's totally fine too. But it's about the two of you coming together and deciding how you want to celebrate your marriage. It's not about fitting a guideline or fitting, you know, everyone else does it this way, this is how we need to do it. So we talked about it, and we were just like, you know what? This is what we want. This is what we always wanted, and this is what we're gonna do. And so we were like, you know, everyone we've invited is gonna be super understanding, and, you know, we know they care about us. We were already having a smaller wedding, so we knew it was gonna be like the people that we had invited, we knew would care about us and love us. And so we decided to elope in November, and I think we actually decided to do it a week out from the day that we were gonna get married. So we set a date. We were we're gonna get married on this day, and we'll have a week to, just kind of get everything in order and let our parents know and see if they can make it and everything. During that week, we reached out to the courthouse. We got our marriage license. We went in and signed all the papers, filled everything out. I went out and got a dress. I was originally looking on Facebook Marketplace for old wedding dresses because I thought it'd be kind of cool to wear someone else's. But for the budget that I was doing, everything was very low budget. I was just like, nothing really here is striking my eye. I found a wedding dress and a veil, and the dress didn't end up working out, but the veil was great, so I kept that. And then I ended up getting my dress from JCPenney, and it was like 80% off. There was some like formal discount that was going on, and I was just like, okay, yeah, this is great. We ended up getting it like 2 sizes too big, and my friend and I, well, mostly my friend, she had to stitch it and adjust it to my measurements, and she did a really good job with that, with the amount of days that she had to do it. And we ended up going to Dollar Tree and getting little tea light candles, and I got my flowers from the Fresh Market, and I got those the day of the wedding. We just kind of put together a bouquet. That's basically everything we paid for. We paid for the officiant. She was provided through the courthouse, and she was just super sweet lady. And the church we ended up getting married at was just this beautiful like stone building. It was gorgeous. She was actually a member there. She knew kind of when we would be able to have the wedding and everything, which was really cool. Another thing about the wedding was the daylight savings had already happened, and so it was getting dark sooner, and we ended up having the wedding around 6, and it was just like black, like dark outside. And at first I was like, oh, I really want to have like a sunset and like kind of have that kind of vibe. But honestly, it couldn't have been more beautiful. Like, it was just so like romantic how it was illuminated by the little candles, and we were standing in front of the church, and it was just so intimate, and just, it was honestly just so perfect. And when I look back on it, I was always worried eloping that I would have regrets, or that I would have something I would do different, or whatever, like something I would change. And honestly, when I look back, there's nothing I would change, because the day like couldn't have been more perfect for us, and it just fit us and who we are as a couple. And I think that was just like the most beautiful part about it. I remember a certain moment with my dad where, they were setting up the candles, and my dad and I were sitting in the car, and he was getting ready to walk me down the aisle. And I was just sitting there, and I was just like, Dad, like, I just feel like this is so right now. Like, this feels perfect, and I'm just so at peace about everything. Like, I knew like people were gonna think a certain way or have certain reservations about us because we decided to elope, but in that moment, like, nothing mattered. All that mattered was that I was marrying the love of my life, and that I was about to be his wife. And it was honestly so perfect and indescribable. I wish I could go back and relive it like every day, and we had like a little honeymoon thing where we rented this really cool apartment in downtown Lynchburg for after the wedding, and it was just so beautiful. And I actually hung out there the day of the wedding too and got ready. It was still nice to like be able to get away and not just, go home after. So after we eloped and everything, we had a few options for our wedding plans before we eloped, but we just didn't really make a decision until after, because we were just like gonna kind of move forward with time. And so we decided that we would still keep our celebration in April. And, since I had already gotten a dress, we'd already gotten flowers, we would still have somewhat of a wedding ceremony, but that it would just be more of a celebration of our marriage rather than a wedding. And so that everyone could still get together and just celebrate with one another. We're still super excited about that, but the other part of that is we're not even sure that we're gonna be able to have that celebration in April with COVID. It's unpredictable whether or not that will be able to happen. And that was kind of another reason that led us to elope. We were like not even sure that our wedding day was actually gonna happen. And so we were like, if it's not definite anyways, we're gonna do what we really want to do and what's gonna make us happy. And I think the important thing to highlight about the whole thing is that we were happiest about our decision. Like I said before, a wedding is about no one else other than the bride and the groom and them committing themselves to each other. It shouldn't be about the in-laws. It shouldn't be about extended family. It shouldn't be about impressing anybody. It should be about sharing a commitment with the person that you love. If you're watching this video and you're considering eloping, or you're considering doing more of a small wedding rather than having a big wedding, or whatever your situation is, there's just a few things that I would consider if I were in your shoes, which when I was in your shoes, these were the things I considered that kind of led me to make my decision. So the first thing is, think of 3 words that you would use to describe your dream wedding. What do those words kind of line up with? When Trevor and I were asked this by our wedding planner, our 3 words were intimate, romantic, and special. Those were the 3 words that we wanted our ceremony to be like. And those 3 words line up with an elopement a lot, because elopements are very intimate, they're very romantic, and they're really special because you can cater them to whatever you want to do and whatever lines up with you and your significant other. The second thing I would say to consider are just the pros and cons of each situation for you. An elopement for you might look different than an elopement for me or an elopement for someone else. So write out pros and cons for having an elopement and write out the pros and cons for having a wedding, and see which ones outweigh each other for each situation. Lastly, the final thing I would consider before eloping is just what matters to you. I've said this multiple times throughout this video, but your opinion is the most important opinion when it comes to your wedding. You should do what you want to do. A lot of people feel uncomfortable having a wedding because they don't want to be the center of attention of a large crowd of people, and that's okay. A lot of people love being the center of attention and they want to have a 300+ people wedding, and that's totally fine too. What matters to you about your wedding, and what are some non-negotiable aspects of your wedding that you want to have? Again, it's not about impressing people. It's not about throwing the best party ever and having the best pictures. Your wedding is only one aspect of your relationship. Granted, it is a very important aspect. It's the day you commit yourself to each other, but you also have a whole future of different situations that you get to live through with your significant other. And honestly, that day is about committing yourself to them and showing your love for them. So when you are considering your wedding, think about the things that matter to you and, proceed from there. Does it matter to you to have a giant party, or does it matter to you to just have you and your significant other? And really, there's no wrong answer. There's no right way to have a wedding. I think a lot of times people feel pressure because there's a certain way that everyone else seems to do it. And that's okay that people do it that way, but also being different is okay too. Well, thank you guys so much for watching my video. If this video was at all helpful to you, or if you had any other questions concerning my elopement, or what led me to decide to elope, you can put those down in the comment section below. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.